Where in the world are the birds today? Well, this time they're in our backyard. I'm featuring Cooper's hawks, which consistently breed and nest in our yard. The upside of that? Well, I learned so much about them, and it is pretty fabulous to see such beautiful birds go through the process of breeding, nesting, and raising their young. The downside? All of my residents and migrating birds are at peril when they are a constant presence. They could so easily be the hawk's lunch, and often are. Also, it can be very stressful as they start to near the fledgling stage if they are out of the nest. In this video, I will share lots of photos and videos and share what my experiences are with these birds. Even if you live near me in central Arizona, your experiences could be very different than mine. I just want everyone to know ahead of time that we don't all have the same experiences with the same species, which, in this case, is Cooper's hawks. All of the videos and photos were taken in our backyard. Cooper's hawks have a huge range in North America. Their range includes all of the United States, plus a bit into Canada, especially in the western part, then all the way throughout Mexico, and some into Central America. Cooper's hawks are considered a medium-sized hawk. They have broad, rounded wings and a very long tail. The head can seem large, the shoulders are broad, and the tail is rounded at the tip. In comparing the size to other birds, they would be considered crow-sized, but the males can be much smaller. Males are about 14 to 16 inches and females about 16 to 19 inches. Males weigh about 8 to 14 and a half ounces and females about 12 to 24 ounces. When viewed side by side, you can see that the female is markedly larger. Adults have reddish horizontal barring on the upper breast, thick dark bands on the tail, with a dark hood on their head, and thick, sturdy yellow gold legs. In my experience, more than with any other bird, Cooper's hawks can be confused with sharp-shinned hawks. I'll get back to the differences between fledglings, immature, and mature Cooper's hawks as far as coloring, patterns, etc. Cooper's hawks are often found in wooded habitats from forests to backyards to parks. They need tall trees for nesting and dense cover, mixed with open spaces, for hunting. They prefer areas with dense understories or shrubbery that allows them to ambush their prey, using stealth and maneuverability. Cooper's hawks have successfully adapted to human-altered landscapes. Urban and suburban areas, mature shade trees, cemeteries, and greenways provide ideal nesting and foraging conditions. I am most familiar with them in a backyard setting, and I almost never see them when we are traveling. Cooper's hawks breed once a year from March to July, which includes flight displays, aerial dives, and vocalizations. In our yard in central Arizona, they breed the first few days of March. They are monogamous and maintain territories year-round. They are also known for their site fidelity, where they often return to the same nesting area and oftentimes building a new nest or occasionally using the old one. They build stick nests high in the forks of deciduous or coniferous trees. The nests are generally about 2 feet across and about 17 inches high, with a cup-shaped depression in the middle that is about 4 inches deep and 8 inches across. The nests are lined with bark and small twigs. Ours build in the crotch of our sisu tree at about 40 feet, and their nest is much wider than the typical 24 inches. The male builds the nest over a period of about 2 weeks with only minor help from the female, and although ours is about 40 feet high, they can be as high as about 65 feet. The female lays 2 to 6 eggs, with some sources narrowing it down much more to the 3 to 5 range, and she does all the incubating, while the male provides nearly all of the food for the female and the hatchlings. Later, both the male and female hunt to feed the chicks. The female only briefly leaves the nest to eat, preen, or defecate. The eggs are about the size of a chicken egg and are bluish white when laid. Incubation is about 30 to 36 days, and they will fledge approximately 27 to 34 days later. They generally reach total independence about 2 months after hatching. Cooper's hawks primarily eat small to medium-sized birds like doves, quail, pigeons, and such, and small mammals like mice, chipmunks, and squirrels, and on occasion they will eat large insects and reptiles. They are ambush predators, so they often hunt songbirds at backyard feeders. When in attack mode, they also will fly low, then quickly up and over any obstruction to surprise their target. In our yard, they will quietly sit on a branch and just wait it out until some bird loses focus and comes out into the open or enters the area not knowing they're there. Only the verdins and hummingbirds stay out in the open when the hawks are present, probably knowing that they are safe because they're so small they are likely not worth the hawk's time and effort. Why pick off one of them when there are better and more substantial birds available? Oh, by the way, Cooper's hawks kill their prey by squeezing them to death. Cooper's hawks' mortality rates are exceptionally high. They have a very high first year mortality rate of up to 78% by some sources, which is attributed to inexperience with hunting, collisions with cars and fences and such, predation by other raptors, particularly great horned owls, hunting injuries, and starvation. For adults that survive to maturity, the annual mortality rate drops to 19 to 35%. Even though the typical lifespan of a Cooper's hawk is 12 years in the wild, the average death is at just 16.3 months. Here's a photo of a Cooper's hawk in our yard showing an impalement. Because they maneuver at very high speeds through thick vegetation, chest injuries, fractures, and impalements like this can easily occur. This photo is not one of our resident hawks, but some random Cooper's hawk that was just visiting. Here is a collage I made showing fledgling, immature, and mature Cooper's hawks. Note the color patterns and the eyes. Fledgling eyes are a beautiful blue, immature birds have yellow eyes, and adult eyes are orange. Also look at the immature breast markings that are vertical teardrops. As they mature, the barring is horizontal. 2 years ago, this was my D.B. Cooper family, Mom, Dad, and the Cooper kids, Bradley Cooper, James Fenimore Cooper, Anderson Cooper, and Alice Cooper. Dad was mature and Mom was immature. As I always do when I passed through the kitchen, I glanced out the back door and saw this little guy walking around on the patio like he owned the place. Later, when I went further out back, there were two more out in the open just past our arbor. Later yet, I found number 4 in the chicken coop. Clearly, since the nest is directly above the chicken coop by about 40 feet, he fell straight down and through the top wire of the coop. What an adventure this must have been for all 4 of them. It was scorching hot, so it is unknown whether they were pushed out, fell out, or intentionally jumped out. That is not at all unusual in central Arizona to have them out of the nest, one way or another, before they are really ready to be. We did not want to interfere with nature, but it was so hot. We kept a pan of water available for them and let Mom and Dad do their job. About a week later, 2 died of flounce. Flounce is a fairly common cause of death for young Cooper's hawks. It is an avian disease caused by Trichomonas gallinae. It affects the digestive tract, causing cheesy yellow lesions and plaque in the mouth and throat. It spreads easily and is contracted by eating infected prey like pigeons. It builds up in the throat, making it impossible to swallow or eat. With the other 2 surviving, we last saw them hopping, then sort of flying in the backyard in the citrus trees. I like to believe that both of them went on to lead a great life. Unfortunately, we hadn't heard the last of Flounce. More on that in a minute. This spring, they were a bit ahead of schedule, breeding later in February instead of early in March. After breeding and nesting season were complete, we saw the first one out of the nest and taking shelter under a plant in the backyard. He really wasn't ready to be out of the nest, but we were not surprised, even though it was not all that hot this spring. The next day he was dead, once again from Flounce. We were not aware of any others at that time. About a week later, I looked out the window and saw this guy in our stream. He was robust and, as far as we could tell, thriving and healthy until he wasn't. Once again, that darn Flounce claimed him. We know of no other chicks from this brood. We have learned that Cooper's hawks have a rough go of it. If they can get to the point where they can fly, at least they have a chance. There are lots of obstacles for the young ones out there. I feel fortunate to be a part of their lives and have sort of adjusted to losing out on spring migration in our yard. The parents in our yard are attentive and fierce protectors of their offspring. The amount of feed needed to raise the young is staggering. Adults need about 12% of their body weight daily, the equivalent of 2 or 3 birds. Chicks require about 65 prey items to reach 6 weeks of age. They need up to 30% of their body weight daily, meaning that dad must successfully hunt several times a day. He brings the prey to the nest, then the female tears it into pieces to feed the young ones. We hope you have enjoyed this video about Cooper's hawks in our yard. If you like, share, subscribe, or comment, that helps me know if I'm creating content that you are enjoying. There are lots of fun outings planned, so we could be anywhere in the world in future videos. Here are a few hints as to where you might find us next.